Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk about Sloan from Section 31. And I will ask the question, did he really die the last time we saw him on Deep Space Nine? Or did he fake his death again? Because in the previous time we saw him, he also apparently died. He got vaporized by a Romulan disruptor. And later Bashir realized that that was all a ruse to try to fool the Romulans. The Romulans were convinced that there is no Section 31 and that he was a rogue agent, and that all that scene was basically an act for the Romulan Senate as well as for Bashir to make them all believe that Sloan died. And yet later Sloan showed up again and again died. And I thought that was the weakest episode about Section 31, and one of the things that always bugged me is that would Sloan really be taken down that easily as we saw in that episode? We saw Bashir capturing him with a simple force field, and Sloan was unable to get away and he killed himself, and also he just happened to have that knowledge that Bashir wanted about the cure to the shapeshifter's disease. And also there was that scene in which Sloan was deliberately giving him information about the other activities of Section 31. And so the more I think about that, I think maybe that was all a ruse again. Maybe once again he wanted to fake his death and he wanted to plant misinformation to give to Bashir so that Bashir will transfer it to the authorities, which will only serve Section 31's true purpose. Or for example, one of the things that Bashir found in Sloan's mind was recent activities in Klingon politics and in the Federation politics. So maybe all of that was deliberate misinformation so that they will get rid of those people that Section 31 wanted them to get rid of, and they were not really associated with 31. There was a lot more going on than what we saw in that episode. Let's think back for a moment on how resourceful Sloan actually was. He was able to appear and disappear at will. No sensors managed to stop him, no shields managed to stop him. Even when people fired at him, he was beamed out in the last second. When Bashir tried to go after him in the corridor, he didn't hear any transporter beam, and the Sloan simply vanished and disappeared. So obviously he was using a much more advanced transporter than the normal one. And obviously he was not acting alone, because in that episode in which he interrogated Bashir, we saw a few other people with him, and they were apparently on an Intrepid class starship like Voyager, since they had a whole holodeck and they had apparently their own uniforms, and so he was not acting alone. So when he was captured by Bashir later, how come no one else from Section 31 tried to break him out? It doesn't really make sense. And especially that he would fall for Bashir's trap like that, after we saw how clever he was in all those other episodes. And so I don't buy that. So here is my theory of why everything happened the way we saw it. We do know that Section 31 really did create the virus that infected all the founders, and I think we can say that that act really did save the Federation, because think about it, because of that virus the founders were unable to shapeshift, and so they couldn't keep impersonating other people and couldn't cause havoc among the Allied forces, which would have been a huge advantage for the Dominion. Section 31 basically took the shapeshifters out of commission, out of activity, and they were unable to do all the stuff they loved doing. And therefore the Dominion basically had no spy network anymore, so that was a brilliant move by Section 31. The immoral part of it is that if they really planned for all the founders to die, then that would be genocide, so that's kind of evil. But maybe they never planned it to go that far. Maybe they did plan to eventually give that knowledge of the cure to the Federation, so that the Federation can use that to negotiate the Dominion's surrender by forcing the founders' hand, basically. They would never surrender normally, but if their very existence is on the line, if they're about to go extinct, only then they would be willing to surrender to the Federation. And so I think my theory is that Sloan wanted Starfleet to get the cure so that they can do this. He couldn't do it directly, he couldn't come himself to Starfleet and give them the cure, because that would make Section 31 look as if it's working with Starfleet. Instead, he wanted Section 31 to take the blame for everything that happened. He didn't want the Federation or Starfleet to look bad for endorsing genocide or something like that, so he wanted Section 31 to be blamed for everything. That's one of the reasons it has to exist, because that way it can do all the dirty work and take all the responsibility for that, leaving the rest of the Starfleet and the Federation clean, morally speaking, and still trustworthy to other powers, and that way they can still be negotiating with other powers. And this way Section 31 wouldn't ruin the image of the Federation, which is important. They do care about the Federation, they do want the Federation to continue to exist and to prosper. And so they couldn't simply give that knowledge to Starfleet. Instead, they wanted to make it look as if Starfleet took it by force from Section 31, so that Starfleet will look like the moral party, which is willing to even save their own enemies out of their good principles and morality. So I think Section 31 wanted Starfleet to have the cure so that they'll be able to negotiate a truce or a surrender of the Dominion to Starfleet. And so once they knew Bashir was looking for the cure, and then Bashir pretended that he found it, but Section 31 are not that stupid. Sloan obviously knew that Bashir is planning something, and I don't believe he would get trapped so easily by a force field unless he wanted to be trapped. Now later we see Sloan committing suicide apparently by activating some kind of implant in his head, but he doesn't kill him right away, and it takes a while for him to die. Would Section 31 really design such a flawed way to commit suicide, which doesn't kill you right away, that takes you a while to die? It doesn't make sense. And also he seemed to be very calm about committing suicide, like he seemed to be very calm when he did that. So I think maybe that wasn't even the real Sloan, maybe it was some kind of clone, maybe some kind of genetically engineered clone with implanted memories, because later when Bashir goes into his mind and he finds all that information that he wants to use to bring Section 31 down, I think all that information was actually planted there deliberately. It was all misinformation. So when he found information about the man in the cabinet of the Federation president, that was probably false information to falsely incriminate someone who was in the way of Section 31, and the same with the Klingon High Command. Bashir saw all kinds of names of people supposedly working for Section 31. In reality, maybe they were a danger to Section 31, so they deliberately planted it there, knowing that Bashir will find it and then give it to Martok and to Starfleet and all of that, and that's what they wanted. So I strongly believe all that information that Bashir saw in the headquarters of Section 31 in Sloan's mind was all misinformation, which they wanted him to have. And so probably that body of Sloan was some kind of advanced genetically engineered clone with implanted memories designed to fool Bashir. And it also contained a real cure to the Founder's Disease, which at this point of the war was coming to a close. Section 31 wanted Starfleet to have that cure in order to force the Dominion to surrender. They couldn't do it earlier because they wanted the Dominion to be as desperate as possible before Starfleet can make that offer. So they wanted to have the Dominion almost beaten militarily before that offer will be made, and also for the Founders themselves to be so sick that they will really feel their end is approaching and their own scientists will fail to save them and they will lose all hope, and that's why they will agree to be saved by Starfleet. And this way Starfleet and the Federation will also look like the good guys, which Section 31 wanted. Section 31 wants to take all the blame for all the bad things on itself. And so the Sloan we saw die was actually not the real Sloan. The real one, maybe he changed his face, maybe he did a plastic surgery and we'll never know who he was later. And also strangely we see some of his memories, and everybody in his memories do call him Sloan. So it also doesn't make sense, because would he really use his real name when introducing himself to Bashir? So why were all the people from his life in his memory also using that name? So it's another clue that all of this is fake. It's not really Sloan's memories. It's all implanted memories, and the real Sloan was probably sitting on some cloaked ship far away, monitoring what's happening and laughing to himself since Bashir fell into his trap precisely, just like he wanted to. And so he never actually died, and his organization remains in the shadows, and any information that Bashir got from his mind to use against Section 31 will actually have the exact opposite effect, only making Section 31 more powerful by getting rid of their enemies in all the places that Bashir thought he found their agents. And so when all of this is over, Starfleet has the cure to the Founder's Disease, which they later used to end the war early, to have the Founders surrender to them through Odo, because Odo is the one who makes that offer to the female Founder. Starfleet comes out of this whole story as the good guys, the heroes who fought against the evil Section 31 and allegedly destroyed it. And Sloan supposedly died, but in reality he simply faked his death and probably changed his face so that no one can ever recognize him again, and assumed some other identity, and no one will ever know who he was later. So I really doubt the real Sloan actually died in that episode. Most likely Bashir was simply fooled by him again, just like he almost did earlier when he saw Sloan being vaporized in front of the Romulan Senate, which was also an act for Bashir and for the Romulans. So that's my theory. Let me know what you think and we can discuss it in the comment section, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.